everyone. Welcome to episode 162. My name is Rachel and this is Woolen Spinning. I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls, and we come to this place to talk about knitting and hand spinning and hand spun yarn and using your hand spun in your knitting patterns. And yeah, we've got a packed show today, so thank you so much for being with me. Mike and the kids are just leaving to go to the park. It is Sunday morning, August 2nd here in 2020. Can't believe we're over halfway through the year. This year is just going like that. It's just crazy. So there may be some background noise. So if there is, I'm sorry about that. It'll be short-lived. We were just having breakfast and finishing up, and all of a sudden I looked at the clock and I was like, I gotta go. So they rushed out and grabbed their bikes and are just off and on their way. So how is everybody? I know everybody's chit-chatting in the chat so far. Our live stream shows are available to patrons of the show. Even if you only have $1 a month to support the show, it means you have access on Sunday mornings to chatting with us and to being here and being a part of the show. So thank you so much to our Patreon community. You guys keep the show on the air. You keep it vibrant and active, and I just want to say thank you so much. So it's good to see all of you. We've got Katie and Debbie, Rochelle, Dana, Jennifer, Glenda, Elizabeth, Liz, Jean. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here this morning. I have a piece of hair like right in my eye and I burst a blood vessel yesterday, so it looks like I've been crying, but I haven't. It's just my eye. So you know what I think it was? I was looking at some fiber. I was processing some fiber and getting it ready to do a little bit of spinning. I finally sat down at my wheel yesterday evening for about half an hour. That's it. That's all I've had a chance to do in the past week. And a bunch of it got in my eye. And just that flyaway stuff, and I was rubbing it, and of course, next thing you know, I've got a burst blood vessel, so it doesn't look very nice. In terms of what we've got going on in the community, we've got yarn substitution just finishing up this month. We've got the Breed and Color Studies has been released. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then in terms of the rest of the show, I have a whole bunch of stuff here to share with you. We are leaving on our off-grid trip tomorrow morning. Mike has us on a very tight schedule. It's very funny. We've been teasing him quite a bit. We've had a couple of drills, like practice runs. It's just all in good jest. And we've failed epically every time. So he's like, well, this is just, we may as well not go. It's just so terrible. You guys can't follow the rules at all, blah, blah, blah. And we're all sitting there going, okay. So it's kind of become like this joke in our little family. So, we're leaving tomorrow morning. We will be off-grid for just over a week. Our original plan was to be gone for 23 days, but we're only unfortunately able to get away for 9 days. It's just some constraints that Mike is dealing with at work. And we usually take a good 2-3 weeks off in the summer where I kind of go off-grid, take a break from the podcast, just take an opportunity to refresh and refuel, and normally it happens around this time of year, so we are going to go ahead and do that. I didn't take a break in March like I normally do, so normally I do it twice a year, usually the week over Christmas, and then a week at March for spring break, and then usually a couple of weeks in August. And so far this year I haven't done that, so I'm kind of ready. So there will be no show next Sunday. There will be no podcast, no live stream, nothing next Sunday. And then we will come back the week after to our regular scheduled programming. So with that, let's get into the show. And I've got some community participation to share with you when we come back. Okay, so Diane just said in the chat, she said, my dad used to set a time for us to leave. Then when we all appeared at that time, ready to go, he'd pour himself a cup of tea. So that's why it's become such a significant joke in our little family of four. And my mom has joined in with the joke a little bit too, because she can see the craziness of it. So some of you have been a part of this community for a very long time, but certainly more than a year. And last July, and I've mentioned it on the podcast off and on, so some of you may remember, we went to the Yukon, and we were gone for a full month, almost 5 weeks. And we have a truck, we drove and camped along the way and so on. Anyways, I should show you guys on the show one day. You guys will have to remind me. We have a duotang of all of the stops, all of the places we were going, approximately how long it would take to get there. It's all Google mapped. He had it all like down to the minute, all the rest stops we could stop at, because we got really used to, when the kids were babies, traveling long distances with babies and wanting to get to like Jasper National Park in one day, which is a 9-hour drive from our house. And so it was like, how do we do that? And how do we break up the day? And how do we maximize our time? And we got really good at it, and that's why we were able to do the Yukon last summer. And so he plans out these trips, and it's all like down to the like half hour. And we've started teasing him mercilessly because he has it like all mapped out and all planned, but we always leave late, always, and we always get there early. So do the math. We leave late and we get there early. And it's because we make up time on the road. So that's why it's become sort of this joke, and why it's become quite funny. So anyways, we're leaving at 6:30 tomorrow morning. Don't be late. So Breeding Color Studies has gone live. This is courtesy of me and Katrina. We offer this twice a year. For those who are new to the community, there are still bats available in Katrina's shop. The link is in the show notes, which is available at patreon.com/WellForPearls. You do not need to be a patron of the community or of the show to participate. The conversation is going on Instagram under #WoolenSpinning. There is also conversation on Ravelry for those of you who choose to use that platform. And there is a Ravelry thread for the Breed and Color Study on there. Because there is an increasing number of people who are finding it more and more difficult to access Ravelry and to use Ravelry for various reasons. I'm not going to get into some of the political side of it. However, from an accessibility issue side, because more and more people are finding it challenging, I'm trying to figure out sort of what we could do in terms of still having our monthly giveaway and whatever that would look like. So, and maybe not hosting the episode thread. We'll still have the episode thread on Ravelry, but maybe having comments on the Patreon post, which is public and available for everyone. So I'm not sure how we're going to do that just yet, but I will keep you tuned, keep you informed. So there are still bats available, and I'm hoping that next show, so not next weekend, but the weekend after, episode 163, I'm actually really hoping that we'll have some people in the community who've been brave enough to open up their bats or maybe start prepping their kits and and are going to start sharing what they're doing. There have been some posts in Slack of prepping fiber and whatnot I've been keeping up with, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are doing with them, and we'll start sharing that on the show and giving you guys some inspiration. So we're doing Charolais for this 6-month study. This will run to the end of December, and then we will do comb top starting in January. So I look forward to that. And the photo that we're using for the inspiration this time round, Katrina found inspiration from Greta's photo at the Warmest Row on Ravelry, and Greta's a very active member of our community. So for the July episode thread, I needed to send out a Friesian bat, and the Friesian bats are actually over there because I've pretty much finished spinning for my sweater, as you can see behind me. I've just got the sleeves to do. And so I'll be sending out a Friesian bat for July's episode thread. And the random number generator actually chose number 18, which is Mowry, who just had a little baby. She just gave birth this past week to a little, hang on, let me find it. She just gave birth to their little girl, Elsie. So on the 29th. So many congratulations to Mowry. And I'll be sending that out to Mowry. And what she said, what I had asked the community was, what's the hardest thing you've ever spun? So she said the hardest thing to spin for me was milk fiber. I like the effect, but don't know that I'd spin it again. But the hardest spins I have are when I get bogged down in the details, trying to manage all the things and spend more time looking at the fiber, my wheel, the 100 things I might do with the yarn, and so on, instead of just enjoying spinning. my hardest spins are generally in my head. And Mowry and I have had many a conversation, because she's one of my good friends, about how we get so in our heads about our spinning. And yeah, it can be really hard. So for August, I'd like you to tell us about your biggest accomplishment in spinning. So this is not necessarily your favorite spin. This is your biggest accomplishment in spinning. So what's your biggest accomplishment? And if you guys would like to comment on the Patreon post associated with this content, I will take that into account when I do when I choose the winner for September. And I will link the Patreon post. I always link it in the show notes. I always post it in the comments below on YouTube, but I also have put it in the live chat so that it'll pop up at this time, and you guys can just click on it. So in the comment section on Patreon, if you want to tell us what your biggest accomplishment in spinning has been to date, or you can go to the August episode thread in Ravelry, which is here. I will throw that in the chat as well. And you can tell us what your biggest accomplishment has been. Our book club is continuing on. This is on the Slack channel, #books. And we are going to be reading Emma next for our Jane Austen book club along. So I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be there on Fridays. With the kids not in school right now, it is impossible to do anything during the day. So I'm really hoping to join back in the fall. And we are also doing How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, if you would like to join in on that. So please feel welcome to come into that group. Of course, if you would like access to the Slack channel, just go to patreon.com/WellForPros. Our Made with Love Along, I was going to do the giveaway announcement today. And I've been chatting with Kelly about organizing all of that. Rebecca about organizing all of that, but we both ended up having really busy weeks. So we will do the giveaways in mid-August. So that will be sort of next show. Oh, thank you, Becca. So the Anti-Racist Book Club meets this coming Wednesday. So we will be away and off-grid, and I unfortunately won't be able to be there, but I'm hoping, like I said, when school gets up and running, that I will be able to participate again, because that's really hard not to be a part of that, and I just so enjoy those conversations with you guys. We go much, much deeper than we are able to on a platform like this. Our Zero to Hero Make Along. I wanted to share this with you because this is Florence, who's one of my most favorite people. She's just a riot. She lives in New Zealand, and she is at Cook Goalie, both on Ravelry and on the Slack channel. And she writes, so Zero to Hero, let me just tell you a little bit about Zero to Hero. Zero to Hero is an ongoing make along in the Ravelry group. You can use the hashtag Zero to Hero on Instagram. And basically it's going from some sort of fiber. So, whether it's comb top or you're prepping it yourself, you're going from a raw fleece or whatever, all the way through to a finished object. So we want to go through to like a woven blanket or a sweater or an item or a garment or a gift. It doesn't matter, but we want to go all the way through from the fiber to the finished object. So I had shared with you, was it last weekend or the weekend before, I'd shared with you Diane's sweater, and this week Florence shared hers. So this is old stash from her mother-in-law. She scoured, dyed, blended, spun, knitted to use it up. This is the outcome of a misstep of day one of Tour de Fleece. We left home and I forgot my Delta flyer. The Magicraft components are interchangeable, but spinning with the wild flyer does feel different. However, many an error becomes a blessing, and this was one of those. This fleece is very different from what I have been spinning of late. I suspect it is a pretty ordinary Romney, and I wanted much thicker yarn than my recent spins have produced. The difference in the spinning experience kept me present to my treadle speed. The Wildflower suits a slower cadence, and I kept to my target twists per inch as a result. After finishing, the yarn was just balanced and I was unhappy with the fabric. After trying several swatches of needle size and stitch pattern, I put the yarn back through the wheel to remove some of the ply twist. What a different experience that produced. Immediately, the fabric was exactly what I wanted. I am 100% happy with this project. It is beautiful, Florence, and it looks amazing on you. So really, really well done. Now let me see, I have another participation to share with you. Oh, I didn't want to turn that off. Where did it go? Now, this is from, oh, you know what? I had a another share from Janelle, but that was from last week, I think. So I will fix that in the show notes. So this is an Ask Anything. We haven't done an Ask Anything for a long time, and I thought that I would do that. And I sort of thought, well, you know, the Ask Anything thread is always really busy, and people in our community are always jumping in and answering people's questions. But Christine had posted about this, and her spinning is just absolutely beautiful. And so I thought, well, let's just have a really quick chat about it. So this is post number, can you believe it, 1838. So 1838. That is the post number on the Ask Anything thread. I do sometimes wonder if I should restart the thread. After Tour de Fleece, I decided to do a snack spin of a 100-gram bump of oatmeal BFL and Tussa silk. It was a 70-30 blend that I'd had in stash for about 7 years. I had no thoughts about what I was going to do with it and wasn't sure I'd enjoy spinning it, but how wrong can you be? I'm loving this. In fact, I'm loving it so much that I want to buy some more and spin up enough for a sweater. I've been thinking for a while of knitting a yoked sweater with a neutral body and dark green for the yoke patterning, something like the pattern Stasis. So Stasis is linked in the show notes. The sweater itself is absolutely beautiful. I will put it in the chat for you guys to see. And I can't buy more from the original online shop, which is Scottish Fibers, as it closed a few years ago. So I'm thinking that if I buy the same mix of fiber from another supplier, such as World of Wool, in a larger quantity and mix it with the bobbins I've already spun, with the bobbins of the newly purchased fiber, because it'll be a 3-ply yarn, it should all blend and not be noticeable. And what do you think? So there were quite a few people in the Ravelry group who responded to Christine's question and said that they thought that it would work out really super well. And I sort of wanted to weigh in and just say, like, I think it would be fine. I think with these natural colors, with these natural colored fibers, because this is undyed, a lot of it is coming from the same source or similar sources. And even though she bought it and has had it in her stash for a really super long time, this is a blend that you can still get because it is such a gorgeous blend. And places like World of Wool in the UK have these blends and have them in quite large quantities. And I think that it's more than reasonable to buy the amount that you need. So you've got 100 grams here. You probably need a cup, another 200 or 300 grams, depending on the sweater that you're made, depending on the size and how much fiber you think you'll need. And you said you wanted to spin for a 3-ply. I think blending this in, if this 100 grams becomes one of the singles, and the newly purchased fiber becomes the other 2 singles, you'll have homogeny through the whole thing. And if you're going to go ahead, she had mentioned that she wants to do a neutral body. So it sounds like she doesn't want to dye this fiber. So I think actually, even if there's some slight differences between the newly purchased fiber and the existing fiber that she's already been spinning, I actually think that it would make a more interesting yarn, and you'll have enough out of the 100 grams, based on the fineness of your spinning, to use this as one of your singles that'll run through the majority, if not all, of the yarn. And the newly purchased fiber will be the other 2 singles. And I think you'll have really, really good results. So a couple of things that people said in the Ravelry group is maybe you could use the fiber you already spun in the yoke and then use a new fiber for the body and the sleeves. That would work as well. Your spin is beautiful so far. I would think you could find more fiber and mix it up and mix up the singles a bit. Absolutely. Dana wrote that. A sweater spin on a spindle, that's quite an undertaking. I learned on a spindle first and did not like it at all. Went back a couple of years later and really enjoyed it. I would like to really practice and learn support spindling. Me too, Dana. I've been working on it. It's hard. Your spinning is beautiful. I agree with mixing the bobbins up to ply. And Louise said she had an interesting comment. Helix knitting is a great way to even out color inconsistencies as well as spinning inconsistencies. That color is gorgeous. So helix knitting, if you Google helix knitting or if you go on YouTube and look up helix knitting, it's where as you're knitting as you're knitting around and around and around, your point of changing yarns changes every time you go up. So you knit around, and then I think you actually tink back 3 or 4 stitches, and then you put in the new color. And then you knit around, tink back 3 or 4 stitches. And it's another word for it is the jogless jog, which is also used for striping and a way of working striping, and so that it's invisible up the side of a garment. But all of this stuff is a little bit different, and there's a lot of similar names, and it's all kind of confusing. But that's a great suggestion from Louise. I'm hoping that some of you, I think Alicia was having trouble seeing video and stuff. Make sure that you're reloading if you're having trouble with YouTube. Or if you're on Patreon and you can't access YouTube, go all the way over. So there's an icon if you click on the play button at the top, there's an icon on the bar of the screen, and it says YouTube. And if you click that, it says watch on YouTube, and that will take you over to YouTube where you can actually be a part of the live chat. And if you're watching on a mobile device, make sure that you're clicking the live chat icon below the video and turning your phone. The live chat will go over the video of me sitting here if you turn it to landscape, but if you keep it vertical, it'll be down below and you can see it as part of your mobile screen. Before we go on, I wanted to share something with you guys really quickly. I'll put this in product view because I'm going to show you on my phone. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to load these photos. So the other day, oh shoot, and one of them isn't here. How did I share that with you guys on Slack? So the other day, I tossed my stash and I basically cleaned it all out. The reason is because I've been really feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of my yarn and all of the things that I have. And so I took it out onto the front step, and there is a method to my madness. I'm actually doing something while I'm chatting, so that's why I'm interrupting myself. I took all of my stash. It's been up on an upper shelf in our closet in our bedroom, and I was trying to figure out a way to sort of organize it, and it wasn't really working. And I had a whole bunch of yarns that I know that I probably will not knit with in this lifetime. And I just thought, I really need to clear out a lot of this stuff, and I need to just move it along and go through it. And a whole bunch of stuff was like half knit, skeins that I had washed that had fallen apart. And this is all commercial yarn. There was nothing, none of this was hand spun. So this is most of my stash, or what it was on Friday at 9 a.m. So I had dumped it out on our front porch, and I had another, so there's a laundry basket under there. So if you look on the side of the photo where our railings are, there's a laundry basket under there. And I had another laundry basket to add to this that was like half full. So not as much as what you see here. And this actually goes quite deep. So it's an entire laundry basket overflowing, and then another bag, and then another pile, another basket underneath there. You just can't see it. And I just thought, I'm never going to knit with all of this stuff. I'm never going to get through it all. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is stuff that like I'm just not that interested in working with anymore. So I went through, and this is actually the yarns that I've come up with for donation. So this is all of the yarn that I have that I'm going to donate. So it's not that much. Let's see if the webcam can focus. Might not want to focus. Sorry, this is on my phone. I did this last night, and it was quite late. My brother and sister-in-law are here right now, so you can get the gist of it. So it says a shopping bag and then 2 other Ziploc bags full of yarn. And I went through, and that was sort of all of the yarn, everything that I wanted to get rid of. And then this is what my stash looks like now. My commercial yarn stash. This is what I'm down to. It feels so good. Oh, shoot. I like it when the photos, when I have them loaded in OBS, I don't like doing it this way. So just excuse my sloppiness this morning. So that's what I'm down to for stash. So the green basket in the middle is all of my worsted weight yarn that's like Cascade 220. It's basically all Cascade 220. There's a skein in there of Cascade Eco, and there's a sweater quantity of Cascade Ecological. So Nora has requested a sweater in one of them, which is totally fine. That's what it was for. And then the other 4 bins, the clear bins, they're only half full. So it's a bit deceptive because they look like the 2 of them look full, but they're actually only half full. And then the box that's on the one side next to the green basket, the one that's up top there by my thumb over here, it's actually got my DK weight yarns in there, and they're a set of yarns. They're a discontinued yarn that I bought actually at Dress Sew in Vancouver, which is like a wholesale kind of place. A lot of like fabric ends, and you can get buttons, and it's a great place for crafting. I actually was hoping this summer to take the kids down there, but of course, the COVID, because it's just a place you can get lost in. And I had bought some discontinued Rowan yarn in there. It was their British heritage breeds. So that's all in that box, and that's it. That's all she wrote. And then the stuff that I've pulled out is here to actually work with like now. So I have some sweaters upstairs that I'm going to do with that commercial yarn. I'm hoping that over the next year or two, that like I can stay focused and work on that stuff, work through it, knit through it. I've got a couple of toques with some leftover yarns up there that I found. And actually what I did was anything that was in a ball, I reskeined it. So everything is reskeined. And anything that had kinks in it, even just a little bit, I washed it. So some of the yarn is actually still hanging and drying. But it just felt so good to air it out because I think that I probably had some bugs in there at some point. There aren't bugs in there now. But you know how yarn, when it's balled up for a long period of time, you know how when it's like this for a long period of time and you start to unravel it and you start to find that like it'll just like randomly fall apart and you've got like a clean break in it? That's from bugs and just being like breaking down and just being balled up for a long period of time. And so I went through all of my yarn, and if there was a skein where it was just breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking, I just threw that yarn out. It just felt so good to clean house and start fresh. So one thing that I have been working on is my Lendrum Saxony. So it's really hard to share this on the show and to bring the wheel over and set up the camera so that I can actually share with you how I'm spinning on it, because it's just such a big wheel, as you can see. That's our 2-seater couch. It's quite a big couch. It came from my parents, and we have the matching 3-seater couch that goes with it. And they're not couches that my husband and I would have chosen for ourselves because they're so big, and my feet actually don't reach the floor. They're just big couches. So you can see in scale that the Saxony is quite big. So to get a camera around it and do it for the podcast is very, very challenging. So this is the Punta top that I have been working on. And this is that Corriedale that's from Argentina. often called Punta. And I've got half a pound, and so I've divided it in half. Oh yeah, Nora was trying to get her feet and her fingers into the video as Mike was standing there, so just excuse the little feet and fingers. She was being a little bit of a monkey. I've got half a pound, so I divided it in half, and then I stripped it down, and this is just a mindless learning the wheel, enjoying the wheel, nothing, like no pressure, no stress, nothing, and just getting to know it, getting a feel for it. I'm running it, as you can see, in Scotch tension. So at the back of the bobbin there, you can see on the flyer side, there's the drive band that goes around the big wheel, and it also goes around the back of the flyer. And I have it running on the fastest whirl right now, which I think is 18-1. And then you can see there's a second band that goes sort of from the bottom up, and you can see it right down there on the side. It's running along the side of the flyer up and over the bobbin, and that's Scotch tension. So I had wanted to run this in double drive, but there were some little burrs on the flyer itself, and we had to file them down, and Gore Lendrum wanted to know if we had fixed it and how it was running, and he wanted some photos and whatnot because he doesn't want it to happen again. And so I just put it in Scotch tension so that I could just spin and get it running for him and get some photos and whatnot. So needless to say, the burrs were easy to take care of. We got them off no problem. Mike did a beautiful job, and now it's running like butter. So yes, Diane. So look how slow you can treadle on that lovely beast. It's so true. So I'm a slow treadler anyways. You guys, I've talked about that on the show before. It's one of the reasons why I use such high ratios. Is because I am such a slow treadler. And what I love about this wheel is so far, because I'm still getting to know it. It takes a while to get to know your wheels. One of the things that I really love about this wheel is as I'm spinning, because the wheel just has this beautiful momentum on its own, I can just sit and just do, and I barely have to move my feet, and it just goes. There is a little bit of backspin. So that's been something I've had to navigate a little bit because my other wheels don't backspin to the same extent. My upright Lendrum sometimes will backspin a little bit. But I think with this, it's just the momentum and the weight of the wheel. So it's a beautiful wheel. It's running really beautifully. I'm really loving it. And I said to Mike last night, I need to figure out how to share this with you guys, because I will show when we get back, and when I get it up and running in the fall, when the kids go back to school, because it looks like at this point they'll be going back in some way, shape, or form. So whatever that looks like, I will share the double drive stuff, and we'll talk about double drive in the show and on the stream, because I know that is something that's been a burning question for people. And Eve and I are still talking about the minstrel and trying to get it over here. And we will have that to compare against as well. So a double drive on a castle style wheel, a double drive on a Saxony style wheel, fielding thoughts and ideas and comments from you guys who run your wheels in double drive. And it'll be nice to have that comparison against the Magicraft Susie, because my Susie is my go-to wheel. I spin pretty much everything on that wheel. My Lendrum Castle, my DT, my upright wheel, I use for teaching. I use it on the teaching content, the monthly teaching content that you get when you're a patron. I use it for the 51 yarns stuff so that I can really slow down and show you guys, because that wheel to me is like, I kind of sometimes feel like it's my third arm. Like, it's just such an easy wheel for me to be able to demo on and to teach and to get concepts across. Especially when you're doing a digital platform where you have to be really clear. And that's something that I continue to work on. So now having the double drive is going to be really nice. I was wondering, so Becca just posted, that's a big drive wheel. It'll definitely feel different. Becca, you spin on a flat iron, a shacked flat iron. Do you run yours in double drive? I've actually been meaning to ask you in the Slack channel, and I keep forgetting. I love what you said about buying possibilities, Jennifer. So it's a stunning wheel. It is stunning what we collect. Actually, what we buy is not yarn, but possibilities, and those change with time. Absolutely, Jennifer. Very, very thoughtful words. Yeah, is a much kinder way to think about it. Feeling the desperate need to toss the stash again, vacuum everything, and replace lavender sachets. Bleh. Sackett's goal decided for this week. That's awesome, Becca. So you're going to toss your stash. So it's funny because I have never really had a big yarn stash because we've always lived in small spaces, and it's really forced me to toss my stash quite often. But so that's actually why I wanted to do it, because I was I actually was worried that what I was worried about was, so we're going away, right? We're going on this trip. Last summer when we went away, when we left for our trip in July, I didn't toss my stash because I try to toss it once a year. And I had recently done my fiber stash, and I did my fiber stash again this past spring because I found some stuff that I really want to delve into over the next year or two. And I hadn't had a chance to toss my yarn stash, and I was actually getting really concerned about bugs. And so that's why I mentioned about the bugs, because I was really worried that when I brought it downstairs and put it on the front step, that none of it would be going back in the house. And that's actually why I wanted to toss it, because I knew I had some sweater quantities in there that I really wanted to use and spin. And I was really, really concerned. And I even actually asked the kids to stay away just in case. So yeah. I don't run it on double drive currently. It's on the list for one of my upcoming spins. Oh, fantastic, Becca. Okay, so we'll have to chat. Yeah. Jennifer, we'll talk about double drive and how it affects your spinning process and whatnot over the next little while. Double drive, it's just a different way of running your wheel. It's a different tensioning style. One of the things about Scotch tension is as you fill up your bobbin, you have to adjust your uptake because your bobbin gets heavier and you need a slightly firmer break. And with double drive, you set it and you leave it. The difficulty that people often have with double drive is finding that sweet spot. And that's why I want to sort of explore that with you guys on the podcast. It's not better. It's not worse. It is completely neutral. One is not better than the other. Irish tension is another one that people, they either love it or they hate it. It's wonderful for textured yarns and for making art yarns. But they're all just different options. They just give you a wider range of things and that you're able to do. I find for me personally, double drive is quite a bit faster. So if I put my biggest whirl on, I can get the wheel going quite a bit faster, and I can spin a lot in a very short period of time, and I love that for long draw. So lots of things to explore, lots of thoughts, and lots of things to talk about. So it mostly affects how the how the take up feels, and how often you have to adjust the tension. Yeah. So it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. So that is my spin that I'm working on right now. And I'm sorry that I'm not working on anything else because, not sorry to you guys, but like I'm sorry that I haven't really had a chance to work on anything else. I have been working a little bit on my fun blend that we've been exploring in the Wool Circle. I had to change the name because we kept getting kicked off during the live stream on Fridays. And that's available for those who would like to have an additional live stream a couple of times a month. And you can check that out. There should be links in the show notes, but if not, it's just at Patreon. And the that blend I have been working on a little bit. I've got 100 grams. I've spun through almost the first bobbin, and then I've got the second bobbin to do the second 50 grams. I've been really, really enjoying it. So I actually clicked on the wrong cameras because I was going to go here. I got some mail. So I think we've been talking about this in the community for quite a while. Gayleen, who is somebody in the States who's been trying to move, she was trying to unload all of her CBM fleeces. And so me and my friend Greta locally split 2 fleeces. And we sent them. Megan helped us out. Many of you know Megan. She's off grid right now herself, but she's at Likey Meg on Ravelry and Slack, and she's Puddle Gum on here on YouTube. And her and I've gotten to be quite friendly, and I asked her if it would be possible when she went to pick up some fleeces, if we could send them to our friend Liz and get them processed into pin drafted roving. So these are the 2 fleeces. So we split them because they were so big, and I think Greta is planning on doing a sweater as well. So there was one fleece that was, I'm just going to take a little bit off so that you guys can see. So Elizabeth runs Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks. So this is the first fleece, and I'll just show you the difference between the 2. This is the other one. They're both beautiful. They are so beautifully processed. Liz did just a gorgeous job, and everybody's been saying how gorgeous these fleeces are, and they were not lying. And I think there's quite a few people in our community who got fleeces from Gayleen, which just makes my heart sing, because it means that people are really trying to support not throwing fleeces out and not sending them to the garbage, you know. So these are the two fleeces. So I just pulled off a little bit so that you guys could see. So you can see the slight difference in color. So this one over here is a little bit grayer. It's a little bit darker. And the other one is a little bit lighter, a little bit more like what I would call like a tawny brown, creamy almost. And they're just absolutely beautifully prepped. Like there's no neps. The fleece itself is butter soft. They are just absolutely gorgeous. So that's a little bit closer up for you guys to see. And Liz just did a beautiful job. They're just absolutely clean. I'm so excited about these. So I'm not going to take them with us on our trip. I've got enough stuff, and we're going to be in the car so much. I was even going to take my e-spinner. I was going to take my e-spinner and talk about like traveling with it and whatnot, but we're not going to have any power the whole time. So once my battery dies, that's kind of it. And I just thought, you know what? I need a true break. I need a true rest and recoup. So I decided I'm not going to take any spinning except for a couple of spindles with some very small finishing projects on them. So and then so back in 51 Yarns, we had done one of our months was spinning in the grease, but also spinning fiber that you have prepped yourself. So our 51 Yarns spin along is based on J.C. Boggs Faulkner's book, 51 Yarns to Spin Before You Cast Off. It's a great book to work through as an activity book. It's not something you would sit down and read. You want to work through the actual exercises, and you want to document and keep track. So that was one of our months, and I pulled out some Cormo that was in my stash that I've been meaning to spin. I had gotten it from my friend Elizabeth, Sarah Elizabeth Fiberworks up here in Nelson, British Columbia. She's just outside of Nelson. And in working with it, I realized that because I hadn't really stored it very well, and I hadn't really looked after it, and it was quite expensive. It's, you know, baby soft Cormo, beautiful, beautiful fiber, raw fleece. It had gotten really crunchy, and I was really concerned that I had actually accidentally damaged it, because I washed some of it, and it wasn't any better. It didn't have an odor. It wasn't discolored or stained or anything, but it just didn't look quite right, and it didn't feel right. So I asked Liz if she would look at it for me, and if it was salvageable, would she be willing to process it for me? She did an amazing job. She almost made me cry because I thought that it was gone. I thought it was done. So this is the Cormo. 1/2 pound of Cormo. Pin drafted to my heart's content. I even feel I've got goosebumps, and I've got tears in my eyes. It's been an emotional weekend because yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of my dad. So we went to the cemetery, me and my mom and my brother. That's why my brother and sister-in-law are here right now. She did a gorgeous, gorgeous job. So, so thankful for this, and for Fiber Friends, and for this community. I just am so thankful. So I am so excited to spin all the things. So I actually think I might put this on the Saxony after I'm done the Punta. I think this would just be a fantastic next spin. And I don't know that I can split it in half. So that I can spin to 2 bobbins. Like I'd like to do half to one bobbin, half to the other bobbin. I'm going to send a little bit off to Eve in the UK because it's a fiber that she finds very difficult to get. And so I think what I might do, I'll show you guys, if I can reach into the box and get it out, I can show you just how beautiful this is. I'm just going to wax poetic about my fiber. So this is how much there is, and I need to put it in a proper bag. I just threw it in the box just to get it out of the bag that it was in, so that I could show you guys on the show. So what I'm going to do is I'll just spin until I've got bobbins full. I'll rewind the singles, mix them up, and ply it up. And I'll probably do a 2-ply. And I actually have a sweater in mind, not any like specific pattern, but I'd really like to do something that's an all over lace or has a lace panel or something kind of like my, I did a Vermont. So there's this great sweater pattern out there called Vermont. I'll just share this with you. We're going a little bit off script in terms of the show notes, but I wanted to share this with you guys. I had spun and knit this great, it was this carded fiber. It was 100% Falkland. It was all neppy and it was all kind of, you know, I spun it long draw. There was tons of neps. The yarn came out super textured. It was just fantastic. And I took this sweater pattern called Vermont, and I'll link it in the live chat right now. And I put it with the featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig as a like a platform. So I used the featherweight in terms of like how many stitches to cast on, and then I didn't look at the pattern again. And then I used the Vermont. I paid for the pattern. I bought the pattern because I wanted the lace pattern, the lace stitch that she used for that sweater. And so this is the sweater that came out, and I called it my hand spun mammoth. And I spun it and knit, I done the spinning and I knit it while we were on one of our trips up in Lake Country in the Fraser Canyon, which is directly north of us. And it's this lake country, you know, leeches in the lakes, but you can still swim in them kind of thing. And this sweater is sort of what I'm thinking for the Cormo. So something with a lace panel down the back, really super simple, really wearable. This sweater, funnily enough, has become one of my go-to sweaters that I pull on when I'm dropping the kids off in the morning and it's cold, but there's no need for a jacket. And I'll put a flannel underneath, and I throw a shawl on if I need it, and I wear this thing. And because of all the neps and the noils and everything, I actually have found, and I don't think I have any like recent photos of the yarn that I can share with you. So here's a link to the yarn as well. Oh, bye Becca, good to see you. Because of all the neps in the fiber from carding, the cool thing sort of that ended up happening is that as the sweater has pilled because of all those neps and all those short bits, they've worked themselves free. And so I've sweater shaved it a few times because I made this back in 2016. It was one of my very first hand spun sweaters. And I have shaved it a couple of times and sort of cleaned it up. And the more I do that, the better it looks. So that's been really cool. And it is so freaking warm. It is so warm. So yeah, really cool stuff. You know, when you have those moments and those projects that you make that you're sort of like, well, we'll see how this goes. It's ended up being one of my favorites. So yeah. Oh yeah, Jill. So I'm kind of in the same boat. So gorgeous processing. I've always been afraid of getting a fleece because I don't have time or space to process it myself. So I'm actually kind of in the same boat. I don't really have the time to do a lot of processing myself, and I have some raw stuff in my stash that my friend Megan sent to me from Finland, and I haven't had a chance to work with it. And part of it is because I haven't had a chance to pull it out and really look at it and to really like explore it. And it's a big problem because with the kids home, the last time I had my hackles out, Nora got quite hurt, and I had told her to watch her hands and to be really careful with the combs and so on and so forth. But you know, they're curious. They want to know, like, what is this stuff? Like, what are you doing, Mama? You know, and they put their hands on it, and I don't want to quelch that curiosity. So I'd rather just, you know, wait till they're a little bit older. They can do their drum carder, no problem. So that's why I've been exploring this blend that I've been working on. It's got BFL, alpaca, flax, and silk, and they helped me make them, which was really cool. So, you know, we're getting there. We're getting there. So let's talk about my Friesian, my shore cardigan. It's in the background here, so I'll just pull it forward, and I'm just going to move my fleeces out of the way. So this might cause a little bit of glare, but I'm going to open the blinds just a little bit to get some light on this so that you guys can see it. So my short cardigan's been going really well. I know this is so dark. It's so hard to show you guys. But basically what I have done so far is I got the body done. So I'll move it back a little bit so you can see the back. So this has the high-low hem. So this is the front. It's a little bit lower, and then the back it goes down. And so it's 18 inches from the underarm down to the bottom of the bottom hem. And you work short rows along the side here, which is really great because, well, they're fun and they break up the knitting. And then the front from the underarm to the bottom is about 16 inches, which is kind of perfect for my height and my shape. And then you pick up your garter stitch button bands. And so you pick up, this is garter stitch. You can't see it, looks black, but it is garter, I promise. And you work your buttonholes, and I did a new thing. So I'll try and link it in the show notes because it's so hard to share stuff off of Instagram. But I found this really fun video, and I don't know if it's still available on her highlights or not. So let me see. But she has this whole technique where she actually knits on the buttons as she's knitting. So rather than going back and attaching your buttons later, she actually attaches them as she goes. And this is from, her username is, and she's got just a great accent. It's MEIJU Knits. And she actually shares with you how she knits on her buttons as she goes. So I will try to link this in the show notes, but it's, like I said, it's very difficult to do. And so I tried it. I was like, I want to see how this works. I want to see if it works. It's brilliant. If you guys have not done that, give it a try. It is really cool. If I can't link it, I'll try and get like a little video of myself doing it because it's a brilliant way. So then after you do your and I use the buttonholes from the Gentle Morning cardigan. I love her buttonholes. I love the technique that she uses. They're basically invisible. They're just fantastic buttonholes. So those are the ones from the Gentle Morning cardigan. So really well done. I think the designer's it's Trin Annalie is her name on Ravelry, but I think her first name is Anna. But her buttonholes on that, if you guys haven't seen that pattern, I knit that last. I just finished it in May actually. And if you guys haven't seen that pattern, it is worth every penny just for the buttonholes. And Trin's first name is, I think it's Anna. Oh, she doesn't actually say on her thing, but I think her first name is Anna. Anyways, great buttonholes. So I use those. After you pick up for the garter stitch button band, you then pick up for your collar. So then I did my last button on the collar and the last buttonhole. And actually for this buttonhole up top, I wanted it to be a little bit tighter. So I just did a double yarn over and a knit two together. That was it. But again, I sewed on the buttonholes. So really, really nice A-line shaping through the body. So this will kind of all block out. And I suspect that more often than not, the way that I will wear it will be like this. That's probably kind of how I'll wear it. And maybe even with the button open at the top. That's probably how I'll wear this more often than not, because it's very heavy, it's very warm. This is a downy-like yarn, downy-like fiber. And of course then, if you wear it open, you can really see the A-line of the short rows and the high-low hem, and it's just got a really lovely feel to it. So all I have to do is the sleeves. And the only reason why I haven't started the sleeves is because I wanted to share it with you guys before I had a bunch of yarn and balls of yarn and stuff attached to it. So very, very happy with this and excited to share it with you guys when we get back. And I really like the fit. I'm really, really, really happy with the fit of it. So I'm just, just feeling really positive about it. So I was knitting away on it, and bless her heart, Nora says to me, I really like that, Mama. I really, really like that, Mama. Oh, do you, Nora? What do you like about it? Oh, I really like it, Mama, she says. And she's going on and on and on. And so I went up to my stash and I said to her, do you see any colors that you like? And this was actually when I realized, going through my stash with her, this is when I realized I had to toss my stash. Because we were going through stuff and she picked out a couple of balls of yarn that I only had one-offs of. Single skeins of Cascade 220 that I'd never used, and that I thought, oh, this will be great for color work in a sweater, and then I never wound it and I never used it. And that was when I found the breaks in some of the yarns. And she said, can I have one? So she picked out this color. I have 3 skeins of this in my stash. I measured her up and I started a little short cardigan for her. So this is Cascade 220 Heathers. It's nothing super special. It's colorway 9655, which I think is Sapphire something or other. You know how Cascade names their yarns on their website, but it's not named in their like it's not on the ball bands. So it's kind of this like purpley kind of, it's got heathered purples and blues in it. It's very, very, just a lovely color. And I'm not quite done the yoke. I've been working on it when I just need something really mindless to do. It's the exact same construction as mine. Pretty much the same. I'm knitting her. For those who have knit for children a lot, if you guys could weigh in, I would really appreciate your comments. She's a 25.5-inch chest. And so I decided the sizing on this is 23.5 inches, 26 inches, and then 29 inches. And so I decided to go for the 29. So even though that'll give her about 4.5 inches of positive ease, I thought that maybe that would give her some space to grow because she's only just turned 6. And this is for the 8-year-old size. And Nora's not very big. She's not particularly tall, but she's not petite. That is not the word I would use for Nora. You cannot push her over. This is what it looks like on a little, I think it's shown in size, like for a 3-year-old. And then this is what it's on a teenager. So super, super cute. High-low hem again. And I had enough yardage for the 8-year-old size. So I sort of thought, well, if I roll the sleeves and if the body is a bit longer for her than it needs to be, and then she can also put like a long sleeve shirt underneath. She could wear a dress underneath because she really wears her sweaters when I make her sweaters. Because I asked James, because if I'm knitting her something, it's like, well, James, do you want something? He said no. They're just too hot. He's in jeans. He's in shorts and t-shirts most of the year. He is just a furnace. So I'm working on that. I'll hopefully be able to divide for the sleeves in the next day or two. I'll obviously get a lot of knitting done over the next couple of days. So that is in progress. I don't usually share commercial yarn knits with you guys, but I do have quite a bit coming out of my stash right now. And I just thought, it's kind of fun to talk about all of what we're working on. So that is hopefully will be done in the next probably a couple of days, let's be honest. And those are both of those patterns are out of Swoon, Maine. And actually I bought this when it was very, very, very first published in 2015. This was one of the very first pattern books that I bought. And the reason was because I really wanted to knit the shore cardigan. So 5 years later, I'm getting to it. So the other thing that I cast on this week was actually yarn that I had pulled out of my Velocore. So when I pulled this out, I really, really wanted to start something right away. Because I felt like if I didn't start something, not only would I not make something, it would get stashed, it would get balled up like this and thrown in my stash, and I wouldn't use it. And so I decided to cast something on right away. And so what I did actually, and I'm sorry that this is so dark, I cast on For the Always in My Heart by Isabel Kraemer. And this is just a lovely, lovely pattern. Oh, take care, Jennifer. It's good to see you. Let me just pull up the pattern for you guys to see it, because then you can see. So traveling yarn overs for the first part of the shawl in just the solid main color. And then you move to I think it's a slip stitch pattern. I think it's mosaic knitting. I haven't actually looked forward. I haven't looked at the pattern very, very closely. I know that sounds terrible. Usually if it's a sweater pattern, I'll read ahead. But I haven't with this one. So this is what it looks like. And this is what it looks like when it's, sorry, the light is right there so you guys can, there's that glare. So I'm sorry about that. So there's a slip stitch pattern where you combine the two yarns together. And then for the border, you can either use the original main color or you can keep going with the contrast color. So I'm just going to see how much of the contrast color I have left over when I get through the color work section. I suspect I'll have more than enough. And what I really want to do is show, it was the same reason for the Vellicore, was show the progression of the color of the fractal spin. So I was looking for a pattern that would really showcase that. And Isabel's shawl patterns are great. They're well written, they're clear, they're easy to follow. I like the shape. I really like triangular shawls. I wear them the most. And so I thought, well, instead, the crescent shawls, I just don't know how to wear them. Like, I just don't know what to do with them. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to make something that I know I'll wear. So I decided to go with that one. So I'm hoping that I'll get some good progress on that while we're away. It's not a huge priority. I'm just going to work on it in the background. This has been awesome to work on in the hot sun when it's been 35, 33, 35 degrees. And I can work on it when I'm sitting in the shade at the park with the kids. This past Monday, we went up to one of our favorite places to go with friends, and they're part of our bubble. We've only got three moms and their kids who are part of our bubble. And I just don't feel comfortable opening up any more than that, because if I ever was questioned about what I do and who I'm working with and my exposure and whatnot, I feel like it just doesn't feel right just yet. And not because I'm nervous or that I'm worried. I haven't had any exposure for over a month now. It's just how the optics of it, right? And so me and Shannon got together, and this is mindless enough to sit and knit. And what I actually did, because the lace pattern in this first part is so straightforward and easy, but it's not quite, I just can't memorize it, but I don't want to be pulling out my phone when I'm chatting with a friend. So I wrote it on a little scrap piece of paper, and I've been keeping it with it. And then I don't have to pull out my phone every 5 minutes. And I could carry on a conversation, because it's just knit two together and yarn over. But the problem is keeping it straight so that you see how it maps out. See how when you look at it, there's a pattern to it, right? Like it's done in a very specific way. So you don't want to mess this up, right? Because it's in, like, there's a grid going this way and also this way. So you don't want to mess that up and not have that work out. So I just wrote it on a scrap piece of paper. On row 5, I do this, and on row 7, I do this, and then on row 5, I do this, and just back and forth and back and forth. Little hacks that we do. Yeah, it's true, Debbie. Yeah, she works in a big hospital as well and wants to be a good example. My thing too, so it's that, and then also I feel like, so here, if you are exposed, or if you have or they think that you have exposed others. So like if I came down with it and then the public health calls and they want your list of people, I feel like if I can't give my list with any sort of integrity and not be embarrassed, I'm doing something wrong. So I don't want to have like a list of like 50 people. I want to be able to write down my mom, Shannon and her kids, Nikki and her kids, and my best friend Amber and her kids, and Katrina and her kids. I don't want to have any other people, because it's the optics of it, right? It's not because I'm particularly worried. It's just, like Debbie said, you want to be a good example, and we're all in it together. Like it's hard for everyone, and I want to be able to see my brother and sister-in-law because, and they've kept their bubble small as a result, because I feel like some of those family connections are really important. So, okay. So, a couple of things that I have been swatching for. I've talked about this a little bit on the show. And I wanted to share with you, because I found all of this yarn in my stash. The kids have come back in, so we might have a little bit of noise, but they will probably go to the train room. So I found, maybe before I talk about this one, I'll talk about Pink Velvet first. So Pink Velvet is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. So last show I had talked about wool and honey, and I had done my gauge swatch, and I made it out of this yarn. This is Custom Wool and Mills. It's their sock yarn. It's supposed to be a fingering weight, but it's really more of a sport weight, and it actually knit up in my gauge swatch, which I seem to have misplaced. Oh, I put it in my book. It knit up as a sport weight, and there's no way I can go any smaller than 3 millimeter. There's no way I can go smaller than 3 millimeter needles. The yarn is too dense and it's too thick. And so I decided to put it aside. And if I found something in the next little while, great. And if not, that was okay too. Because as I was rescanning and washing and going through stuff on Friday, I found this, and this is New England Shetland. I have 2 skeins of it. I have roughly 400 yards, which is actually too much for this sweater. I only need about 200 yards for the yoke on this sweater. And I had this, and this is actually quite a significant amount. This is Jamieson's Spindrift, and I have a crap ton of yardage, excuse my language. And I think this is colorway Nutmeg. Yeah, it's Nutmeg 1200, colorway 1200. It's this gorgeous coral color. And I had knit this into something by Hohe Locatelli, and it hadn't fit, it fit properly, but I didn't like the aesthetic of the sweater, and I ripped it out. This was years ago, probably like 2007, 2008, and it's been knit in that sweater this whole time. So I reclaimed the yarn, I skeined it up, I washed it. It dried within like half an hour. So this is it reskeined. And then I've got these little ones that I never delved into. And this is going to be the body of the sweater. And then I went on Ravelry and I was looking up a whole bunch of sweater patterns that used a 2-color yoke just like this. And I just kept coming back to this one, to Pink Velvet, again and again and again and again. So this is going to be the top part of the yoke. Hi, James. And this is going to be the body. And I think it'll work really quite well. These are split complements, and because the coral is like it's that off orange with that off coral tealy blue. I love this combination, and I can wear it with the blue. It won't wash me out too much, and so I'm taking this with us on our trip. So this is my first project. So this is trip planning now. the all-important trip planning. And then the next sweater that I figured out, so I was going through stuff that was saved in my library on Ravelry, and I found this. So this is this, I'm going to butcher the name, the Sauvebelin sweater, and it's by Jessica Gore, and my gauge was correct on this yarn, and it's a little bit rustic. The sweater, it's got all that gorgeous cabling down the front. It's got that raglan construction that fits me so well. And I went back to my swatch and I was like, am I right? Like, is that right? And then I realized, and I thought for sure I had to download the pattern. And then I realized it's in my library because I have the book. I forgot that I bought the book. How ridiculous is that? So this was the Woods book. It was published in 2017, and I did buy it when it was brand new. And actually I bought it as a because it was a recommendation by Sarah of Fiber Trek, and her and I had been chatting about it because the aesthetic in this book is very much her and I, that kind of rustic, natural colors, hand spun tweedy kind of yarns, and she had recommended it, and they happened to have it at my local yarn shop at 88 Stitches. So this is another view of the sweater. This is a gorgeous book, and I have the exact amount of yardage that I need for this sweater. I can make it the length that they call for. I don't have to cut anything close, like make it shorter because I don't have enough yardage. I think the length of the sweater is 15 inches, which is perfect with a pair of high-waisted jeans. And my gauge is bang on. So I wrote something wrong here, actually. I need to fix it because otherwise I will forget. So this was my gauge swatch. Really, really nice yarn. And, it's just an opportunity to knit up some commercial yarn out of my stash and make some sweaters that I'm really excited about and that I really want. And this will be great under my rain jacket and whatnot in the winter. Simple pullover. You can put a collared shirt underneath that shows at the bottom, just really super cute. And I have, like I said, enough yardage. So that is the second project that I'm bringing, but I'm not going to start it if I am working on other stuff. So if Nora's sweater's not done, if the shore cardigan's not done, I'll just bring the yarn home. I've only skeined up one ball, and I'm not going to take any more. And if I just get this started, that's just great. So that's the second project. And then the third one I talked about last week is the Poet sweater by Sari Norland. And this I'm going to do out of Swan's Island Naturals collection. This is their fingering weight merino. Again, this has been in my stash since about, I want to say like 2016, 2015. It was right after Nora was born. So I've got it balled up, and I did my gauge swatch, and I included some of the lace paneling and patterning so that I could see, because she gives the gauge. I love it when pattern designers do this. So anybody out there who's a pattern designer, this is very helpful. She gave the gauge of stockinette and of the lace pattern. So I was able to check double to make sure that I both had my stockinette gauge and my lace gauge, and I do. So this yarn is a really good substitute. I wanted something a little bit more rustic for this sweater, but I also really want to use up stash. And this is a naturally dyed yarn in goldenrod. So it'll be a nice fit, and it's a gorgeous lightweight fabric. It'll be a very wearable sweater, and it's a pullover. So the front of the sweater is all patterned as well. So I'm going to take that again, like this Sauvebelin sweater, the Jessica Gore. If I don't get these ones started, that's fine. I'll just work on them in the background over the next couple of months. My plan, so I kind of have a bit of a plan, because I really would like to make some of these sweaters that have been on the back burner for quite a while, that have been kind of ruminating in the back of my head. Because my favorite is to work with hand spun, but sometimes I just need to be able to knit. I just love knitting, right? Spinning is my it's my passion project. It's what I dream about. But I do really enjoy the mindlessness of knitting, and I get a lot of pleasure out of that. And so with these two projects, I guess these three projects, if you will, if I'm working on one of them at a time, then I can kind of, work through them and kind of tick them off, if you will. So I'll work on the one, maybe cast on the other one if I get the one finished, and then kind of work my way through that way, so that I've got a couple of one commercial yarn pattern on the needles at a time. So, and I'm a very monogamous knitter. So if I have one hand spun and one commercial, that'll work really well. So it is more portable, Diane, and I find that sometimes with my hand spun, because I want to showcase the yarn, I tend to choose very simple patterns. And I've been really inspired recently by Kelly, because her and Greta have been, some of the sweater patterns that they've been making recently out of their hand spun are more complicated stitch patterns. So very similar to this one, Kelly was just swatching for something where it had the cables, like this Jessica Gore's sweater pattern. And I think that's kind of where I want to go in the future, is to merge the two, because I like knitting patterns and I like the aesthetic of patterns in knitting, and I just need to kind of figure out how to do that. So thank you so much for such a great show, and thank you so much for being here. If anybody has any last minute questions, we'll take a minute to answer them. And I really appreciate you guys being here and spending some time with me today. It's always really wonderful to check in and to chat with you guys. There won't be a show next week, just to reiterate that one more time. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. I will do a vlog while we're away, like I always do, and that will be available to patrons when we get home and once I kind of edit it and put it together. There is a vlog of our Yukon adventures from last summer, and that you can find in the index. So the index is available. The index is actually, I used to include it in the show notes, but I'm actually not sure if I have accidentally taken it out. So if it's not there, I will start adding it again. The index is available for everybody to look at. Some of the links are public and are open to everyone, and then some of them are only for patrons. So it's a nice place for me to put everything so that you guys can access it and spend some time getting to know it and looking at it so that you can really use it to your advantage. Yeah. This was an especially inspiring show today. They're always great, but this has me thinking about a lot of things. Oh, thank you, Diane. I'm glad. Thank you. That just fills my bucket. I think Jill had said something. I missed it though. Oh, lovely sweater. Yeah, thanks, Jill. I really, so for me, there's a couple of things just before we go. There's a couple of things that attract me to certain sweaters. The neckline is a big deal. If you have a really super square neckline that comes up really super high, it doesn't look right with your clothes and it doesn't look right on your body. So that's a big thing for me. I really like having necklines that fit well with other sweaters and other shirts. So like for me, like the poet sweater is a great example. Because of the way the neckline is, I could wear something like this underneath and have that on top, and it would work. So stuff like that, like having things sit properly. I really like gentle V-necks. I like deep V-necks because you can really have a fun sweater underneath, or not sweater, a fun shirt underneath or a shawl. I really like having stuff that like oversized shawls on top of chunky sweaters. Again, I don't like stuff that's kind of slides on and kind of slides off your shoulders and you're constantly like pulling at the collar. If you're gonna have a picked up collar after the fact, I like it to be long enough that you can make it a shawl collar to just fold back a little bit. Because otherwise you're constantly pulling at it to pull it back on and pulling it up and on, and then it pulls your clothes forward like this. And you don't want to be pulling at your clothes all the time. So these are all things that I think about when I'm perusing patterns on Ravelry. And oftentimes I'll click on a pattern that I really, really like, and I'll look at how other people have made it and what it looks like in the projects, and I won't make it because it doesn't sit properly. Or like when you see those patterns where the models are like this, you know, and they're posing like that, or they're like kind of like this, that's a big red flag for me. Because if they're posing like that as the model, it means the sweater doesn't fit properly and it doesn't sit properly. If they can't be up and back and just stand in whatever pose they want, there's probably a problem with how the shawl collar sits, or how the sweater fits, or how it's fitting on the model, or it's not sitting on her shoulders properly, or it's falling off. Or like when they photograph men and they're like this, like men don't sit like that in a normal course of daily events where they're like this. So if men aren't kind of lounging back like that, like kind of how a guy would sit, I always think red flag, because it means there's something with the garment fit that's maybe not quite right. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the pattern, but that's where I go to the projects and look at what people have knit and how they're wearing it. And sometimes it's just the way it was photographed. But I like to see the garment. I want to see how people are wearing it. I want to see them in a natural, normal environment. Because all of that grading that goes into all of the tech editing and all that time that the designers spend behind the scenes that we don't see as consumers of their patterns, that's really important work. And you want to make sure that there's an adequate amount of work going in, especially because patterns are expensive and we should be paying designers for that time to grade their patterns appropriately. So, just if you're having problems with sweater fit and you're sort of finding that some patterns, you're thinking it should fit one way and you knit it and it doesn't fit at all that way, have a look at how it was posed and how it was knit. And you can start to be a bit of a detective and work your way backwards and kind of see, oh, maybe the shawl wasn't, like the short rows weren't quite right. Or maybe for my body, I need to modify that and take it from another pattern and plug that in because I know that works for me. And just kind of approach it as sort of a detective and sort of figuring it all out. Yeah. Yeah, it is very personal, the neckline thing. Hate sweaters that fall off my sloped shoulders. It's really interesting because I knew this woman once and she had a very, very, very long neck. Like she looked like this. So my shoulders go out because I've got swimmer's shoulders. So imagine that the side of my shoulder, I'm trying to look in the camera and do this, but imagine that this piece of me didn't exist and that my shoulders just came down like that. So that was her body. And she had a congenital defect where she didn't develop her shoulders properly. So she had this like very sloped long neck. So like no sweaters fit her properly, right? So one of the things that she always had to look for when she's knitting for sweaters, and she's still a knitter now, like she's a beautiful, brilliant knitter. She always had to look for sweaters where she could modify the raglan, where they were a round neck, like what I'm wearing, with a raglan that she could keep the raglan stitches very minimal because she didn't need them. And that she could modify them, but that the round neck would actually like, kind of like on a funnel, it would be tight enough that it would literally stop and wouldn't fall down. Isn't that interesting? So it's really important. It's important to know how to get your sweaters to fit properly. It's one of the reasons why we spend so much time on the podcast talking about it. So yeah. And if you guys ever have any other questions or you want to talk about something really specific, we can definitely do that, or we can go through some of this stuff and how to modify necklines, how to modify raglan stitches, how to modify some of this stuff. Just let me know. We can talk about it in more detail for sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, see Debbie, you're one of those people. So long neck and small shoulders. So you're going to need fewer stitches in your raglan, but you still need, and then you still need to be able to fit your front and your back. So you need to go based on your upper bust measurement. That's the size that you should be picking for patterns, and then take out raglan stitches, but then also make sure that your neckline fits properly with not too much ease, because otherwise you're going to end up with a boat neck on everything and it's going to fall down. You're going to be constantly pulling at it. So this is all really, really important. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for being here this week. Thank you for your time and your energy and your thoughts and your comments. I really appreciate it. If you would like to join the conversation over at patreon.com, you are more than welcome. And please check it out. If you have any questions, just don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. So our next live stream will be on August 16th at 9:15 Pacific Daylight Time. So I will see you guys then. And until then, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy dreaming, happy all the things. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.